Donald Trump claimed to really care about the opioid epidemic when he was campaigning. In fact, on several different occasions, he brought up the issue and said that he was going to look out for the American people and ensure that we had a system in place to take care of them. Let's take a look at a fun little montage that the Washington Post put together of all of these different examples.
Drug abuse has become a crippling problem throughout the United States. Drug overdoses are now the leading cause of accidental death in our country, and opioid overdose deaths have nearly quadrupled since 1999. This is a total epidemic. We will fight to increase access to life-saving treatment to battle the addiction to drugs, which is afflicting our nation like never, ever before. We're going to be ruthless in that fight. We have no choice. The heroin is really tough because they say once you get hooked, it's really tough. In all fairness to your son, it's a tough thing. Some very, very strong people have not been able to get off it. So we have to work with people to get off it. And we're going to battle it in two fronts. We're going to do the clinics. We're going to work it so they can do the clinics and do them locally so they're locally based and run. That's not so different than the education. We want it locally based and run. In the meantime, people are hooked. And I don't know what it is with heroin, but it just seems to be a really tough one to get away from. But it can be done. And we're going to take care of the people.
So it's interesting that he claimed that he cared so much about the issue because as the Senate was drafting its replacement plan for Obamacare's repeal, they of course cut a ton of funding that would go toward helping those who are addicted to prescription painkillers or heroin. Now, as a result, there were some more moderate Republicans in the Senate that said that they would vote against it because their own constituents are really suffering as a result of the opioid epidemic. So what is the response to that? Well, it turns out that those on the far right are trying to sweeten the deal for moderate Republicans by increasing funding for opioid victims, right? But the way that it's going down should have you concerned. So addiction experts and others across the political spectrum say that boosting the current bill's $2 billion for substance abuse services is like applying a Band-Aid to a shotgun wound. It's complex, lifelong medical problem that requires regular health care. Now, they're planning on increasing that $2 billion by an additional $45 billion. And again, it's not because they're genuinely concerned about looking out for Americans who are dealing with this addiction. They just want to make sure that moderate Republicans sign on to this. But even moderate Republicans are kind of rolling their eyes and saying, this isn't enough. In fact, John Kasich says, that's like spitting in the ocean. Also, West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito says, or also along with Senator Rob Portman, said Wednesday that money would have to be paired with more generous Medicaid provisions to get her support. Now, you guys know that Senate Republicans want to cut Medicaid. The Senate bill would make $772 billion in cuts to Medicaid over 10 years, including the rollback of the federal government's funding of Obamacare's expanded Medicaid eligibility, through which an estimated 1.3 million people have gotten mental health care and substance abuse coverage. So it's not just about having some sort of slush fund, it's about having a comprehensive strategy and plan in place in order to take care of these individuals.
Exactly. You can't just throw money at this. You have to have some kind of, it's a real policy, and I love that word strategy. That's exactly what you need. You need to be tactical about where that money's spent and how it's spent. And this is just a buy-off, right?
In a way, it's a buy-off, especially when you listen to the senators that are talking about, Capito and Portman, both senators who they're not certain how they're going to vote yet on the revised AHCA coming out of the Senate. Hearing them sort of criticize this, John Kasich, who spent the entirety of his campaign, he had a New Hampshire-centric campaign, and he spent the entirety of that campaign talking about opioid addiction and the problem in that state. Maggie Hassan, who's the senator from, former governor and senator from New Hampshire, saying, you know, listen, if you're going to come into the state to do that, it's a drop in the bucket, because if you don't have an integrated health care network to take care of these people, it doesn't matter. And it goes to what Anna was saying about the Band-Aid on the on the, what was it?
Gunshot wound.
The gunshot wound, right. I was going to go with shark bite, but
that works.
I think it's the same thing.
Same imagery.
It's my anti-gun thing. I won't even talk about it. And so it's embarrassing, and it's embarrassing too, and this point has to be made for senators who fall for it. So if the White House thinks that they're going to get somewhere with this, then you're a fool if you're a senator and you buy into this crap, because there's no way that this is going to be implemented as just money if there's no network, like Senator Hassan said. So I think that's really, I mean, you could listen to the White House say whatever they want. You can listen to what the senators who are crafting this are saying, but you are a foolish senator if you fall for this, if this changes your vote. And hopefully Capito and Portman don't because of this.
Well, if you really care about the opioid epidemic, I mean, there's a lot of politics being played in Washington now, and there's not a lot of concern for these issues in any kind of real substantive way.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think for some of the more moderate Republicans, I don't know if they're genuinely moderate because of their principles and what they believe politically, or if they're moderate because of their constituents, right? And so I think the most powerful thing that's come out of this story is the incredible impact that these constituents have had. And I know that Capito was confronted by a woman who wants to protect the Affordable Care Act, and also talked about her terminally ill daughter and how important the Affordable Care Act is to her. And so voicing your concerns does move some of these politicians and does somehow miraculously convince them that, hey, maybe not listening to your donors for a second and actually listening to the people who vote for you matters. So what I'm concerned about is whether or not it's going to be a political calculation by these moderate Republicans, right? Because if they go ahead and say to their constituents, hey, but we fought and we got that extra $45 billion to take care of you guys, who knows, some might be fooled by that. Some of the constituents might be tricked into thinking that's good enough. But make no mistake, it's not good enough. You do need a comprehensive strategy, which, by the way, no one talks about this at all. Neither the Republicans or the Democrats talk about this. But you also need to do something to regulate pharmaceutical companies and ensure that they can't, encourage or persuade doctors to overprescribe highly addictive drugs. And that's a big part of why this is all happening.
Yeah, these are prescription medications, and you're absolutely right. And by now, there's been plenty written and plenty displayed in documentary of one sort or another about how the medical industry is helping to support the opioid epidemic. I keep wanting to say academic, but the epidemics involving opioids are fed through that whole pharmaceutical medical industry. So, yeah, decoding this is not hard, but I think defanging it is much harder. It's a big problem that is, as you say, in need of a strategy, not just money.
And there aren't a lot of, moderate Republicans. Let's not get carried away here. These are not necessarily moderate people. And with the exception of Susan Collins, and I think you should moderate if your constituents are more moderate, certainly as a congressman, but as a senator too, I think you should, because that's who you're, it's not as representative, and I know you're there to sort of be who you are. But with the exception of Susan Collins, there's no bite in any of these barks. I mean, Capito's father was Arch Moore, who was a Republican governor of West Virginia, who was sort of ahead of his time as a Republican in talking about healthcare. But he was still, he wasn't right there. Her pedigree is not moderate. Her pedigree is very different than that. So the fact that she's coming around on this doesn't make her a moderate, just moderating on this issue, which I think it's really important to distinguish.
Right, you're right about that. By the way, I just want to end this story with a quick comment from an unnamed White House official who spoke to Axios and said the following: I think we're going to pass this. I really think they'll bribe off the moderates with opioid money and then actually move policy to shore up Mike Lee and Ted Cruz. I just thought that the wording there was fascinating, and I wanted to make sure that you guys heard it.
You don't like ads? I hear you, brother. You know how you can avoid ads for the Young Turks? Become a Young Turks member and get all the content ad-free. TYTnetwork.com/join.